Imagine having just landed your first top 10 track on the Billboard dance charts and you're almost done producing your next big hit. But then your flatmate and friend steals that idea, releases it, and it turns into an international smash hit before you were ever able to release your own version. That's kind of the story behind Love Can't Turn Around, the very first track that turned house music into an international phenomenon. So in this video, let's take a closer look at its history and who got screwed over by whom. In my Chicago house tutorial, I kind of already explained how house music in its early stages wasn't necessarily its own genre yet. It was mainly disco, soul, and funk records kind of being mixed and edited by DJs like Frankie Knuckles, who was playing in the Warehouse in Chicago, which opened in 1977. And one of these soulful, funky disco tracks that he liked to play in his sets was I Can Turn Around by Isaac Hayes.
No more empty days and lonely nights. Girl, you've changed my whole life.
But by the early 1980s, DJs would turn more and more into actual musicians, first adding some musical elements to the edits they were making of other tracks, like adding some drums with a drum machine or maybe a little synth line or something like that, and then slowly but surely copying more and more of the music that they liked, and even creating remixes or full remakes of certain tracks. The first official house record ever, On and On by Jesse Saunders, was also just a remake of a bootleg that was containing 4 tracks that were popular at that time. But jumping to 1985, house music is now already a pretty big thing in Chicago in the local scene, and you have a number of different clubs besides the Warehouse playing the sound, like the Music Box, the Power Plant, Then One. And DJs by then were already doing a little bit of everything, playing out disco classics, mixing things live, pre-editing, producing bootlegs and remixes, but also creating their own original music. We, for example, have SteveSilk Hurley, who with Music is the Key, created the first house track to chart in the Billboard dance charts in 1985.
We pressed it up. It went through the roof.
But finally getting back to I Can Turn Around by Isaac Hayes, around 1983 or 84, Steve already had the idea to create a remake of this track, so he made a fully electronic instrumental version, kind of taking the bass line, adding some drums with a drum machine, recreating the brass sound with the synth brass, and that we're making an instrumental remake or cover of this track, which he would be using in his club set. He played it in his radio shows as well, but he didn't really know that there was even an option to turn this into an actual release or record.
I didn't understand how the music business worked, so if I had, I would have put I Can't Turn Around back in 84 or whenever that was.
This early demo version was still a great success in the house scene, and you had a bunch of copies circulating on tape. But by 1985, Steve's production skills, as well as the technology used for producing at the time, had advanced quite a bit. For example, we have the Roland TR-727, which is great for percussions, coming out exactly that year. So Steve was getting ready to release a little bit more advanced and polished version of his initial edit. But along comes Farley Jackmaster Funk.
We're here with the man, Farley Jackmaster Funk.
Farley and Steve already had quite some history. They used to be really close DJ buddies and even roommates, but eventually ended their friendship fighting over their DJ names, or more specifically, who is the real Jackmaster.
I would say right around 83, 84. My DJ name was SteveSilk Hurley, and I said I was gonna start calling myself Jackmaster Silk. And Farley was my roommate at the time.
And when he said that, I was like, how can you change your name to Steve Jackmaster Hurley? I'm the real Jackmaster because I put this like, I do that in all my records, then I sample it, right?
By Friday, his name was changed to Farley Jackmaster Funk.
I went and said, Farley Funk and Keith is dead. He no longer exists. There's a new guy in town. His name is Farley Jackmaster Funk. Needless to say, Steve was on his way to the radio station with his tape, ready to make the new announcement that he is going to change his name to Steve Jackmaster Hurley, and almost ran into a pole.
I couldn't believe it. It was the worst.
Well, to me it's pretty clear that only someone able to do this has the right to call themselves the real Jackmaster. But all jokes aside, the beef between these two didn't quite end here. It actually really just got started. Because SteveSilk Hurley hasn't officially released his version or edit or remix of this track yet, but Farley has heard it many times.
He witnessed me DJing, playing I Can't Turn Around on the radio. At parties, just like you did. So he knew I had the song. He knew I was recording it over again with Keith on the vocals with me. And he knew it was getting ready to come out, and he still just got together with Vince and everybody and did it. You know, but
So the Jackmaster thought, I really like this idea, see a lot of potential. Why not just kind of steal it or take it and make my own version of it? But since he wasn't that great of a producer, he asked some familiar faces for help.
Farley was over at Jesse's place, and he said he had this idea. And so he couldn't execute that. When he knew that the three of us could.
Running Dwayne to do the solo, the piano stuff on there. We brought in Vince because Vince was like the lyricist on everything.
Now this is how it started. My dream's all brokenhearted because I want you. We'll never be the same because you play these silly games and yet I want you.
We didn't have a lead vocalist.
I had recently recorded a song with this guy, Daryl Pandy, a song called Climax that was on Ray Barney's Bright Star Records. He had a big bellowing voice and he was very churchy, and we thought that the kids were into that spiritual shit, man. Motherfuckers yelling and screaming on the records, you know. So we thought that he would go over like gangbusters in the club. So we brought this guy in and he sang the fuck out that tune.
Now this is how it started. My dreams are broken-hearted, yet I want you, baby. We'll never be the same, cause you play those silly games, and yet I want you, girl.
So with the help of Vince Lawrence and Jesse Saunders, who you might remember produced the first official house record ever, On and On, he was able to land a huge hit, and it had a big success, not just locally. It actually turned out to be the first house track ever to land in any charts outside of the US, since the track climbed up all the way to spot number 9 in the UK charts.
I played it at Heaven. I knew it was just going to tear the place up, and it did. And then I played it at the Mud Club, and it, likewise, same thing happened there.
So this all happened in 1986, and in the same year, SteveSilk Hurley finally managed to also officially release his edit of I Can Turn Around. And it was also relatively successful, but not only very overshadowed by the success of Farley's version. Since it came out later, people also kind of got the wrong idea.
A lot of people overseas, they have no idea that I even did a version before him. So when his came out and then mine came out, then it was like, you biting off Farley. Yeah. What are you doing?
Many times with musical ideas, it's kind of difficult to say who came up with it first, who copied who, and there might be somewhat of a debate. In this case, it's kind of clear because Farley doesn't make a big secret about that he got inspired by the version that Steve had.
To date, my biggest record in the UK is Love Can't Turn Around. And it came together from, once again, it's crazy, it came together from an idea SteveSilk Hurley had.
So we not only know chronologically who came up with the first idea, we also have the person copying and admitting to that. But let's see how much did they copy and kind of put these two side by side and compare them a little bit. Just for reference, I also loaded in the original by Isaac Hayes. Let's start right here. So that's a motif that we already know. Kind of picks up over time. All right, let's check out the two versions that we have right here. I Can Turn Around by SteveSilk Hurley. Let's listen to that. Some fills. Okay, we can tell, okay, we got the bass line from the original. Then over here. That's kind of this part over here, right? So, taking that idea. We got some vocal chops. Kind of funny, quirky vocals. Kind of the melody of the original, right? By Isaac Hayes. Let's wait for this spot. Okay. I like the congas here. That's kind of why I mentioned the 7/7 earlier. These are like classic 7/7 percussions. Let's keep going. Kind of a classic snare drum fill. The whole arrangement is a bit over 7 minutes. Let's skip through a bit. Going back. Break down. Okay, instrumental part, drum break here in the middle. And eventually this recovers from here. Okay, that's basically it. Let's check out the version by the real Jackmaster Farley. Start strong. Kind of a different vibe. Okay. Okay, it starts right away. The vocals come in, piano in there. Relatively different, right? But let's skip through a bit. Okay, also the melody of the original. So you can tell that the basic idea is similar, but because it picks the specific kind of part or bass line from the original by Isaac Hayes, the overall vibe is relatively different, I would say. They use the same melody, but let's keep going a bit. Then you have this one. Like, this is the part which is most similar, I would say. Okay, you also have these vocal chops, right? But the piano isn't in the one by Steve Hurley, so that's definitely a big difference. You get these kind of extended fills, right? The scream. Okay, he's going a bit crazy here. Kind of have these similar congas back here, right? And over here in this part by SteveSilk Hurley, he's also kind of screaming. We have this extended fills and stuff like this. But on one hand, there are some pretty clear differences between these productions. But then on the other hand, it's also pretty clear that the initial idea came from SteveSilk Hurley and that they took specific elements and kind of turned them into something else, but still using that as a basis for their success. But Steve himself actually has a pretty positive attitude towards this for a good reason.
Like I said, I don't have regrets of that.
Absolutely.
And you know why I don't have regrets for that? Because when his record came out, it opened up house music in the UK,
Right.
and it went top 10 or 20 or something like that, to the point where they had their eye on house music. So by the time Jack Your Body came out,
Right.
that was able to go #1 for 2 weeks.
And
so
stay right there. And
so I don't want to block
Right.
some blessing that happened to me because of something bad that happened to me. It opened up a door for something good.
Okay. So apparently karma has once again done its thing, because by now we of course know that SteveSilk Hurley is one of the biggest legends that house music has to offer, and he went on to create tracks like Jack Your Body that would have even more international success than Love Can Turn Around had. But what seems pretty crazy to me is that he's not even the only person who got screwed over in this whole situation.
I'm in Rocky Jones' office, and he's cutting us a check for $20,000, $30,000. You know, and I'm sitting up thinking, I didn't expect anything out of this record, but I'm making money.
You know, you're working with your friends, and you think that, you know, I guess everybody do the right thing when somebody gets paid, you know, that everybody's sharing the wealth, but you come to find it, it's just not like that.
I never got a friggin' penny.
I don't think even Daryl got the money that he should have gotten.
I feel like the story is a pretty good representation of what was going on kind of in the second phase in the evolution of house music, where things started more and more turning into a business. Because things got pretty competitive, and Farley definitely wasn't the only one who was kind of using this elbow out, making it to the top type of mentality. And especially when it comes to copyrights in the context of house music, things have always been a little bit complicated. So how do you completely blame him for getting inspiration and making a copy of something that was already taking inspiration and making a copy of something? And I think it might be interesting in another video to kind of look at the evolution of copyrights in this context and where house music would have been if it took copyrights completely serious. But that being said, I hope you found this interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want to support the channel, you can head to my website, oleanshouse.com. But besides that, I'm looking forward to see you in the next one. Ciao.